Tonight, the final Senate battle. Just one day left in the critical Georgia runoff. Senator Raphael Warnock, the Democrat, fighting to hold on to his Senate seat as Republican challenger Herschel Walker looks to score a victory for the GOP. The former football star facing new allegations of abuse. What his ex-girlfriend told our Von Hilliard about their tumultuous relationship. We have full team coverage on the ground in the Peach State. Trump versus the Constitution, the former president calling for the, quote, termination of parts of the Constitution as parts of his ongoing efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Tonight, how top Republican leadership is responding as Trump continues his scandal-ridden bid for the White House. Global eruptions, a volcano roaring to life in Indonesia, unleashing a massive plume of smoke and ash. Thousands forced to flee their homes, and the largest active volcano in the world still spewing lava in Hawaii. The warning for tourists on the Big Island tonight. Parents fight back. Two frightening animal attacks caught on camera, both in broad daylight. A coyote snatching a 2-year-old from her driveway, and a raccoon attacking a girl on her front porch. That little girl and her mother join us tonight. How mom turned into Mama Grizzly and pulled off that incredible rescue. Plus, political punches, the shocking video from Senegal, lawmakers brawling on the parliament floor, one of them throwing a chair at her colleague. What led up to that unbelievable fight? And the explosive accusations from Harry and Meghan, what the couple is saying about their split from the royal family, including allegations of racism and planted stories in a bombshell documentary that drops this week. Top Story starts right now. And good evening. We are now less than 24 hours away from that critical runoff in Georgia. Republican Herschel Walker looking to unseat incumbent Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock after neither managed to win 50% of the vote in the general election. Here's a reminder of where things stand right now in the Senate. Republicans hold 49 seats. You can see it right here. Democrats hold 50. That's enough to serve as a majority, with the vice president breaking a tie. But a 51st seat would give the Democrats some wiggle room, and that's what Republicans are looking to prevent. Voters in Georgia already turning out in droves, a record 1.85 million already casting their ballots. 52% of those early voters were Democrats, 39% Republicans, but Republican voters traditionally more likely to vote in person on Election Day. So it all comes down tomorrow. Both parties bringing out the heavy hitters in the final stretch. Former President Obama, you see him there hitting the trail with Warnock multiple times. And Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, who is widely popular with Republicans in the state, endorsing Walker. But the football star turned politician bogged down in yet another scandal. Our Von Hilliard sitting down with the latest woman to come forward with allegations of abuse. We begin first with Chief White House correspondent Peter Alexander, who leads us off tonight.
Tonight, the final countdown. Both Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock and Republican challenger Herschel Walker making a late push for votes ahead of the last midterm contest in the country.
Are you ready to win this election?
We got to do it together, and that's how we're going to win.
Warnock, who was first elected in 2021, is now facing his second runoff in just 2 years.
The Democrats have already secured a majority in the Senate. Why does a 51st seat matter here?
Oh, this is a Georgia seat. It matters to Georgians. Here's what I believe. Georgia is better than Herschel Walker. Period.
Walker's attacking Warnock is a rubber stamp for President Biden, voting with the president 96% of the time.
We need to get back to people who become leaders. We don't need followers no more, so he's been following Joe Biden around.
Tonight, the former football star is facing a new accusation of physical abuse. Cheryl Parsa, who says she had a 5-year relationship with Walker, tells NBC's Von Hilliard Walker tried to punch her in 2005.
He had his hand on my throat and my chest, and then he leaned back to throw a punch. And luckily, I was able to avoid that.
Parsa is a registered Democrat. We reached out to the Walker campaign that did not provide a response to her accusation. Walker has acknowledged suffering from mental health issues during that time period. Even before tomorrow's vote, a record number of Georgians have already cast their ballots. Republican Judy Sarden, a lawyer and mom, says she's voting for Walker.
We need someone in the Senate who's going to consistently vote for conservative Republican values to help get this country back on track.
And we met college student Sunjana Das, who's supporting the Democrat.
why are you voting for Raphael Warnock?
I'd say it's because he's just a catalyst for change in all the areas that I'm really passionate about, like the women's right to choose.
Peter Alexander joins us tonight from Atlanta. Peter, despite the growing allegations against Herschel Walker, several establishment Republicans, including the governor there and some prominent U.S. senators, have campaigned by his side in this runoff, but no sign of former President Trump, who endorsed Walker early on.
Tom, you're right. We have not seen the former president here in Georgia campaigning for Herschel Walker since it was determined last month that there would be a runoff in this state. We are told that the former president, Mr. Trump, will be participating in a virtual rally for Walker tonight on the eve of the election here. But if Walker is to lose, it would also be a defeat for the former president, who, as you noted, helped propel Walker to the Republican nomination. Tom?
Peter, from being on the ground there, can you get a sense of where the energy is? I know you asked Senator Warnock about the importance of this election, even though the Dems will hold the majority regardless.
Yeah, Tom, it's obvious that there is energy. Unclear which side it's on right now, but notably more than 1.85 million voters, a record, already cast their ballots in this race, and that's ahead of Election Day. And notably, 77,000 of those voters did not vote in the midterm just a month ago. When we spoke to folks today, they say they plan to be out there, that there's simply too much at stake. Tom?
Peter Alexander leading us off tonight. Peter, thank you. For more on this critical election, including the record early vote and some issues possibly getting in the way of voting tomorrow, I want to bring in Vaughn Hilliard, who joins us now from Atlanta as well. So, Vaughn, we've already seen record turnout. Does it seem like voters have changed their minds over the last month, or do most seem to be reaffirming their vote?
Everybody that I have talked to is voting for the exact same person they voted in last November's election. The big question, though, is how many voters is Herschel Walker going to be able to turn out for him who maybe did not vote for him in the last go-around, maybe voted for Warnock or the Libertarian candidate who received 81,000 votes in that race here. Herschel Walker's going to need those voters in order to close that gap. There was a 38,000 vote deficit for him just 1 month ago. The big question is going to be who turns out to vote tomorrow. We are expecting rainy and cold conditions, 40, 50 degrees, much like it was today here, which is a concern here because the early vote favored the Democrats here heavily over the last week and a half. And now the expectation is that those that vote in person, those trend towards the Republican. Now, Herschel Walker needs that reality to play out, but in big numbers, Tom.
Yeah, the big question was there were so many voters who voted for Governor Brian Kemp who did not vote for Herschel Walker. What will they do with this early vote that's been coming in and tomorrow? I do want to talk to you about tomorrow. We look at your live shot there, Vaughn. We know it's cold, it's rainy. What's the forecast like on Election Day?
Yeah, we're talking about cold conditions here. Yet, Georgians have showed just 2 years ago in 2020, it was a similar type of day in the primary, and folks came out there. You saw them willing to wait in long lines, and that's exactly what we expect to play out here tomorrow. We saw in the early vote that lines lasting for an hour to 2 hours, and it's quite remarkable when you're talking about literally just one election, one race that is on the ballot. But we saw those 1.85 million folks that came out in the early voting round. And there was no voting here over the course of this weekend or today, so the polls are opening back up tomorrow. And the folks here in Georgia, they're not naive to the fact that the whole country is watching this race. We saw back 2 years ago when they had a runoff for those 2 U.S. Senate seats that not only for Democrats, but particularly black voters, showed out in a greater share than they did in the general election race. And that is what Democrats are hoping for the case of Raphael Warnock this time around as well.
Finally, Vaughn, with such strong early voting numbers, I know election officials in Georgia are already setting expectations on when they will be able to declare a winner.
Right, we could know the result as soon as midnight tomorrow, but more likely to be 1, 2, 3 a.m. There's a good shot by the time the sun rises on Wednesday that we're going to know who is the victor in this, unless we're talking about a race, which it very well could, that comes down within hundreds or even thousands of votes here. But because most voters here in the state of Georgia for this runout are not voting by mail, which those mail ballots are the ones that cause the delayed counting process in the general election, just a fraction of voters here are voting by mail. And so we should, over the course of the night, get a pretty good idea by the time folks go to bed who the winner is going to be here in the state of Georgia, Tom.
All right, Vaughn Hilliard for us in Atlanta as well. Vaughn, we appreciate it. Staying with politics, former President Trump drawing attention for calling for the termination of parts of the Constitution. He cited baseless claims of widespread election fraud in the 2020 election and said he should be put back in power. It's just the latest in a string of controversies for the former president since announcing his third bid for the White House just weeks ago. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles has this story.
The Republican Party tonight once again forced to answer uncomfortable questions about Donald Trump.
So I vehemently disagree with the statement that Trump has made.
The party's only announced candidate for president and the GOP's de facto leader proposing on his Truth Social channel that parts of the Constitution should be terminated to allow the 2020 election to be overturned. Trump's claims of widespread election fraud are baseless, but he argues that, quote, a massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules and regulations and articles, even those found in the Constitution. Our great founders did not want, would not condone false and fraudulent elections. It is a position some Republican leaders were forced to navigate.
Well, obviously, I don't support that. The Constitution is set for a reason, to protect the rights of every American. And so I certainly don't endorse that language or that sentiment.
While some, like Congressman-elect Mike Lawler, were able to distance themselves from the former president, other Republican leaders, like Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell and the House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy, have yet to respond, despite repeated asks of their offices. Today, Trump walking back his words with the following statement. The fake news is actually trying to convince the American people that I said I wanted to terminate the Constitution. This is simply more disinformation and lies. John Bolton, the former national security advisor under Trump, now one of his critics, speaking out today with harsh words for his former boss.
It's not merely wrong and outrageous. It is disqualifying.
This just the latest in a long line of controversy that continues to surround the former president since he announced his intention to run for president again.
I am tonight announcing my candidacy for president of the United States.
It was less than a month ago that Trump was dining with rapper Kanye West and a white nationalist, Nick Fuentes. Trump has yet to apologize for hosting the pair, and just days after their dinner, Ye, as he is now known, went on Alex Jones's InfoWars to declare his admiration for Hitler. Thursday night, Trump expressing solidarity with January 6th insurrectionists in a fundraising video.
People have been treated unconstitutionally, in my opinion, and very, very unfairly, and we're going to get to the bottom of it.
While Trump remains the most prominent member of the GOP, there are signs even some of his Republican supporters may be open to other nominees.
I just don't think that at this point he'll be able to get there because I think there's a lot of other good quality candidates out there.
And the new Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries, warning Republicans that Trump is only part of their problem.
The Republicans are going to have to work out their issues with the former president and decide whether they're going to break from him and return to some semblance of reasonableness.
All right, Ryan joins us now live from Washington. Ryan, for the past few years, the RNC and Ronna McDaniel, the head of the RNC, they've been a mouthpiece for former President Trump. And to be fair, that is what the national parties do. But has there been any recent daylight between Trump and the national GOP?
Well, they certainly haven't gone out of their way to condemn Trump and his comments, but they're also not running to the front of the line to also show support for him during this difficult time where Trump continues to mount controversy after controversy. Of course, Ronna McDaniel is up for re-election as the chair of the Republican National Committee. She's already facing challenges from some on the far right, those closely aligned with the former president. Donald Trump himself has yet to endorse someone in the race for RNC chair, although some of his biggest supporters have put their support behind Ronna McDaniel. But to answer your question as simply as I can, Tom, no, there's no daylight still between the head of the RNC and the former president.
We want to turn now to another big story we're following, the latest on the internal investigation at Twitter. The tech giant's new CEO, Elon Musk, promoting a thread by journalist Matt Taibbi, which claimed to reveal how Twitter made its previous decision to block users from retweeting or direct messaging a 2020 New York Post story about Hunter Biden's laptop and its contents in the days before the election. Taibbi said he saw, quote, thousands of internal documents about how the company made its decision. NBC News has not seen or verified those files. At the time, Twitter claimed the article violated its policy against distributing hacked materials, but there was apparently internal confusion why and how they came to that conclusion, a move that then CEO Jack Dorsey later called unacceptable. The New York Post and Republican critics said the move showed clear bias on the part of a big tech company to not run a story that could potentially hurt Joe Biden. I want to bring in Alex Stamos. He's the former chief security officer at Facebook and currently is a partner at the Krebs Stamos Group. We do want to mention that we invited Matt Taibbi to be part of this conversation, but did not hear back. So, Alex, I want to start. Why do you think Musk didn't just release the documents? Why do you think he got a third-party journalist like Taibbi involved?
I think he did want some credibility from an outside journalist. But also, he was clearly trying to make it as splashy as possible. So, you know, if he had just released thousands and thousands of emails, he would have lost control of the narrative as all these different media outlets reported what they saw as the facts. And Taibbi, you know, spun a pretty strong tale, which then wasn't really supported that aggressively by the actual emails he attached to his Twitter thread.
So, yeah, what did you think about the emails that were released and some of the reporting by Taibbi that's been out there? It's clear that Twitter looked at this issue. It's clear there was some confusion, and clearly people were raising red flags. But Twitter, just like Facebook did at the time, cited these FBI warnings about hacked materials coming out in the days before the election.
Right. So to understand what happened in 2020, you have to look back to 2016. There were two different Russian campaigns against the 2016 election. One of those campaigns was on the social media platforms itself. It's the famous troll farms of the people pushing these memes about Trump and Hillary and a variety of topics in American society. The other was the hack and leak campaign, and that was actions by the GRU, Russian military intelligence, to break into the email servers and accounts of critical Democratic officials and to leak their information. When the companies reacted to 2016, they came up with policies that dealt with the trolling on their own platforms, but they also wanted to have something related to the hack and leak. And in the end, the hack and leak campaign does not really target the platforms themselves. It targets the media. And I do think Twitter made a mistake here. I think having a policy to block something that is in a mainstream media outlet like the New York Post, whatever you think of their journalistic ethics, I don't think it's Twitter's responsibility to do that. But their decision to do it was based in a factual thing that happened in 2016. And like you said, in warnings that they had been provided over the year from the FBI that wasn't specifically about this topic, but that a hack and leak was a possibility in 2020.
You know, you took a lot of heat, as you were mentioning, about what happened in 2016 with Facebook. Of course, there was that fear there. But Republicans and some journalists on the right are convinced that big tech in 2020 was on the side of Democrats, without a doubt. Do they have an argument here now that more of this information is coming out?
So I think the Taibbi documents that he released, the stuff that we've seen so far, actually makes the opposite argument. The conspiracy theory that's been pushed by a number of figures on the right was that there was a specific request from Democrats or pressure from parts of the Trump administration that did not like Donald Trump, the deep state, so to say, asking specifically for this to happen. And what these documents showed was that the decision was made internally. There's a bunch of confusion, a bunch of arguments, a lot of dysfunction. You know, Twitter has never been known as an incredibly well-run company, and you had a lot of confusion about who had the power to make the decision. But in the end, Twitter had a policy that they had created based upon the Russian behavior in 2016, and they applied the policy when they figured out that there was no evidence that this was actually leaked or hacked documents. They decided to allow the New York Post story to go back up. And so, you know, the idea that a 2-day delay on just Twitter of just this one story, but not all the related discussion affected the election is kind of silly. In fact, what we saw here was what people call the Streisand effect, which is by doing this, Twitter really drew attention to this story and made it a huge deal in the last couple of weeks of the campaign.
Right, but at the same time, there was also a growing chorus, especially from former intelligence officials, that had signed a document saying that this was definitely looked like it could possibly be Russian misinformation, classic Russian misinformation. Turned out all those intelligence officials were wrong, and Twitter apparently made the wrong call here. Hindsight, of course, is always 20/20. Some Democrats, though, like Representative Ro Khanna, basically told Twitter this was not a good idea. Democrats were very concerned about the outside.
I mean, I agree with Ro here. I don't think it's appropriate for Twitter or Facebook or any other platform like that to decide to substitute their decision for that of a media outlet like the Post. Now, the Problem here is that the Post had not provided any evidence to any other media outlets, and they didn't provide any evidence that authenticated the hard drive. In fact, now that other media outlets have gotten access to the hard drive, they have found that it has been modified since Biden last used it. And so, it is a very complicated story.
And it is, Alex, and I want to ask you about that because it's weird, right? Because you have big tech, they're communication companies, they're information companies, but as you mentioned, they're not newspapers, they're not NBC News, they're not CNN, they don't have the same boards that we have, standards and lawyers. They do have them, but we have them just dedicated purely to journalistic principles. How difficult is it for them, and will they ever be able to really control this and be able to release this information in a safe manner?
I think the right thing for them to do is, in situations like this, you're just going to have to let the media run with it and all the arguments to happen in the public space. When it's right on the platforms itself, that is their responsibility. So, they should not allow the GRU to create hundreds of fake accounts to try to leak information directly to people. Twitter should not allow the Ministry of State Security of the People's Republic of China to manipulate the platform with thousands of fake accounts. That is, I think, an appropriate focus for the platforms. The problem of possibly leaked or hacked information being in the media is just the cost of living in a free society. This is something that, is having a free press means that possibly that press can be manipulated by outside forces, and we just have to kind of live with that and hope that the American people make intelligent decisions based upon the information they have.
You know how to run a successful social media company, or at least, and when I say successful, I'm not taking a shot here, a social media company that has millions and billions of users. My question to you is, and others are trying this right now, is there a marketplace for another social media like a Twitter, more dedicated to journalism, or that can get the parts of free speech maybe better than Twitter has?
Well, I mean, the problem here has never really been the journalistic side. It's that if you run a Twitter, you end up with hundreds of millions of users, and a handful of them are journalists who work for a company with ethical standards and compliance teams and lawyers and such. And then you have hundreds of thousands or millions of citizen journalists, some of whom are very ethical and thoughtful, and some of whom just make stuff up. And, this is just the reality of our age, is we don't live in a world where people tune into the three major channels plus CNN and two newspapers. We have this explosion of media outlets that people can see, and there are good sides of that. The bad side is that you can have people select themselves into media ecosystems that are not trustworthy and that lie to them all the time. I think there's some responsibility for the platforms around that, but most of that should be around the design and trying to support good journalism economically. I don't think through content moderation you're going to improve the overall quality of the media ecosystem online.
Yeah, and I think there's some responsibility that lies with the public as well. There's this strange phenomenon that has happened over the last 10 years where if somebody reads something, they immediately believe it, regardless if it's a text, regardless if it's a tweet by some random person. So there needs to be some responsibility with the public as well. Alex, I could talk to you all night, but we have to move on. Thank you so much for coming on Top Story tonight. We want to take you now to a developing story out of North Carolina where authorities say a targeted attack on a power substation has left tens of thousands without electricity for a third straight day. Families now scrambling for shelter as temperatures remain frigid. Here's NBC's Blaine Alexander.
As the sun sets on Moore County, North Carolina, tonight, tens of thousands of residents are left in the dark for a third straight night.
How did you guys stay warm?
A lot of blankets. A lot of blankets.
The work of at least one criminal vandal, officials say, who intentionally targeted the county's electrical system.
What happened here Saturday night was a criminal attack.
The FBI says it's investigating willful damage after officials say at least one gunman broke through gates, accessing two Duke Energy substations and started shooting. Enough damage to knock out power to more than 45,000 customers, the majority of them still in the dark.
This was not no random act. This was something targeted. The folks that done this knew exactly what they were doing. So, and that's scary.
Tonight, the county is under a state of emergency with mandatory curfew at 9 p.m. Schools closed. One of the area's main hospitals forced to operate on a backup generator. Businesses, roads, and busy intersections all in the dark.
How dangerous is this situation?
It's very dangerous. We've had several accidents involved already due to power outages. We had some shots fired. We had robbery attempts.
Duke Energy would not detail security measures around the substations, but says they do meet industry requirements.
Are these energy stations secure enough?
we have robust security measures and requirements as an electric utility. We're regulated. So we do look for opportunities of how we can improve that process, things that we can do, and we'll take learnings from this.
As temperatures dip into the low 40s, for many, this grocery store, one of the few with power, is the only refuge.
It's cold, and I come over here a couple of times a day to get some hot food.
Just to get warm.
Yeah.
We have no heat. We have no cooking facilities. We have none of that. That.
How are you getting by?
Barely.
You feel for all those people, especially with those chilly temperatures. Blaine Alexander joins us now live from Carthage, North Carolina. So, Blaine, I have two questions for you. The first, why is it taking so long to get the power back on? And I know this is sort of out of left field, but it's been connected to some of the reporting there, that at least speculated. There was some type of drag show. Did it have any kind of connection to possibly what happened at this substation because people were protesting that performance?
Yeah, Tom, let's tackle that one first. Officials so far are saying that there is no motive. They don't have any suspects. But they also say that they're not ruling anything out, including that possible connection. This was a drag show that was taking place in the area. There were a number of protests already kind of taking place. And so certainly they say they're looking into whether there was a possible connection there. Now, as for the length of time to get this back on, when I spoke with a representative from Duke Energy, he tells me this was very extensive damage. In fact, some of the parts of these substations were destroyed, so they have to bring in replacement parts from other areas in the country. That's going to take a rather long time. They're going to have to essentially rebuild those areas that were damaged in order to get the power back on. They are hoping to have everyone back in light by sometime Thursday.
We hope they can get it on faster than that. Blaine, we appreciate it. Now to the two volcanic eruptions thousands of miles apart. New video, check this out, shows a massive plume of smoke spewing from a volcano. This is in Indonesia. A mountain of ash streaming down on one of the most densely populated islands in the country. Thousands of people there forced to evacuate. All in just 1 week after the world's largest active volcano erupted in Hawaii. Look at that, the lava. Now threatening a major highway in the Big Island. Our Steve Patterson has the latest.
Tonight, thousands of Indonesians in a desperate scramble to evacuate the East Java province after this terrifying wall of ash erupted from Mount Semeru on Sunday. The volcano unleashing a river of lava and smoke on Indonesia's most densely populated island, covering some in a layer of soot. And sending plumes of ash thousands of feet into the sky. Nearly 2,000 people have fled their homes, according to Indonesia's disaster management agency. So far, no deaths have been reported, but this eruption comes exactly 1 year after Mount Semeru's explosion last year, which killed 51 people. This just the latest volcanic activity across the globe. In Hawaii, the world's largest active volcano, Mauna Loa, erupting last week and is now edging closer to the Big Island's main highway, only 2 miles away.
We have such limited roadways on this island, and anytime we lose a roadway, it just shifts all that traffic somewhere else.
But officials say the speed of the lava has slowed, now moving at about 50 feet per hour.
We feel pretty certain that the lava is not going to impact any population area.
But people are flocking to the island to catch a glimpse of the volcano, and local officials are still warning them.
What are you telling people right now who want to see the lava?
As long as you stay by your car and you don't start trekking out into the lava fields, we highly recommend against that. That is dangerous.
Geologists with the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory expect the eruption to continue, possibly for 2 more weeks.
A lot of my family's on the Puna side, and we have other family in Kona, and we use this road to see each other, especially with the holidays coming up.
When I think about how it's going to affect me, it's really devastating.
Tom, the good news back in Hawaii is that lava is moving 50 feet per hour. That is incredibly slow. So the hope is that the eruption ends before the lava reaches the road. However, officials say that these eruptions are incredibly unpredictable, that lava flow could increase, and vigilance is being stressed for anybody that's in that area. Tom?
Okay, Steve Patterson for us. Still ahead tonight, the serial killer confession. The chilling new admission from a man already serving a life sentence for the murders of several women in the Northeast. Plus, the shocking video from Senegal. Have you seen this? Lawmakers throwing punches and even a chair on the parliament floor. Why tensions are so high in that country. And 2 animal attacks caught on camera. A coyote
Look at this, snatching a 2-year-old from her driveway, and a raccoon attacking a little girl on her own porch. That little girl and her mother join Top Story next. Stay with us. All right, we're back now with 2 terrifying animal attacks caught on camera. The 2 little girls screaming for help after coming face to face with aggressive animals right outside their homes. Horrified parents springing into action, wrestling their children from the jaws of a coyote and a raccoon. Stephen Romo has these stories.
Their screams for help are enough to get most any parent to spring into action. 2 little girls on both coasts of the country in horrific daytime animal attacks, both of them caught on camera. The first in Los Angeles, where a 2-year-old girl was attacked by a wild coyote.
I heard her screaming and cry. I thought she fall down. And then I saw the coyote with her.
The little girl's parents, still in shock, are speaking out.
Her pants were stained with blood. I took it off, and then I noticed, the scratches that it made on her.
The couple's Ring doorbell camera captured the moment the coyote first approaches the toddler and her dad as they stand near their car. The wild animal then snatches the girl from behind and knocks her to the ground, where it tosses her body around. Soon after, the father is seen scaring off the animal by throwing a water bottle at it and rushing off to get help.
We had to get rabies shots on her and just hope everything is going to be okay.
The family says they've lived in this location for 3 years and nothing like this has happened to them before.
There's a lot of coyotes here that we see. Nothing ever like this. They always just run away.
Officials telling NBC Los Angeles that they took bloody clothes in for DNA matching to begin the process of trapping the coyote. Just last summer, there was another coyote attack on a 2-year-old girl in Huntington Beach. That coyote was shot and killed by officials. In Connecticut, another terrifying animal attack caught on camera. This time, a raccoon seen attacking a 5-year-old girl. Her mother, Logan McNamara, rushing out to help. At one point, her daughter was in one hand and the raccoon in her other. The animal clinging on until the mom manages to fling it into their yard. The little girl was taken to the hospital to get rabies shots. Animal control was not able to track that animal down. The family now setting traps around their home to avoid any future incidents. Well, both raccoons and coyotes can be out in the daytime, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're sick or a danger, but it is still best to avoid them. Experts also say if an attack does happen, whether it's a bite or a scratch, even if it doesn't seem too severe, you should still get medical treatment. Tom?
All right, our thanks to Stephen Romo. And joining Top Story tonight, the 5-year-old that you saw in that video, Riley McNamara, and her mother, Logan, who rushed to save her from that aggressive raccoon. Logan, welcome to Top Story. And Riley, I actually want to start with you tonight. How are you feeling?
Good.
What was it like? What was going through your head? I mean, that looked pretty scary.
Was it scary? It was scary.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Logan, if you could walk us through what happened, 7:45 a.m., your daughter's waiting for the bus, and you hear this yelling on the porch. What goes through your head?
I thought she slammed her hand in the door. I thought maybe her hand or her finger was stuck in the door. And I'm running to her and telling her that I'm coming, and I see a raccoon wrapped around her leg.
So how big was that sucker? It looked like it was kind of big.
It had to have been at least 25 pounds. That thing was huge.
25 pounds.
And this fat.
Mm-hmm.
It was fat, Logan?
Yes.
Yeah, it was like this fat.
Oh, my gosh, Riley, I can't even believe that.
And it was this tall.
Oh, my gosh, I can't believe that. So Logan, explain to me. So you run out there, and then, Mama Grizzly just sort of takes over, right?
Yeah,
you just grab that raccoon.
Mom instinct. It was just the instincts that kicked in of a mom hearing her kid needing help.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you were fearless, right? You grabbed that thing. Where did you grab it?
I grabbed it by the scruff of the neck. That way it wasn't biting me, and I was able to pull it off of her leg, too.
And so it was... Yeah, go ahead.
She just bent it down and then just grabbed it by the scruff.
Yeah, your mom was so brave, huh? Yeah, I think so, too. So,
and someone on my bus gave me a scarf because I was so brave.
You were brave, too. Yeah, that's good. You definitely deserve that and more. So, Logan, I want to ask you, you grabbed the raccoon, and then what happens? Is things starts trying to go after you?
It was latched onto Riley's leg pretty good. Once I finally got it off her leg, then, yeah, it wanted to go after me because I was the one that was holding it. And then it looked like you were trying to shake it off, but I guess you essentially just sent it airborne? Yeah, the first time that I threw it, it latched onto my sleeve. So it got stuck and I couldn't let it go, or it was just going to come right back up at me. That's why I had to go and try and throw it again and make sure that it wasn't holding on to me that time. Oh, my. And then after you launched it, did it sort of just was in shock? It just walked away like it had just done nothing wrong. Oh, my gosh. And then what were the extent of the injuries on Riley? We just have a few scratches. Riley's got a couple punctures on her leg. A little bruise. It's really not bad. Okay. I think she's gotten worse injuries falling off of her bike. Yeah, I guess the wild part about all this is that it attacked during the day, right? Yeah. And I had just had my dogs outside 15 minutes prior. I've got 2 German Shepherds and a Norwegian duck troller that were all just right outside. And any idea why that... Yeah, go ahead. And then it just came out of nowhere. It really did. It was so strange. Yeah. Any idea, has animal control been able to tell you what happened there? It was just sort of maybe a crazy raccoon? So I haven't spoken with animal control. Nobody's contacted me about it. We put a trap out ourselves. It's on the side of our house that we've been trying to catch it. So if we do, then we'll take care of it. But we haven't seen it since. Good luck with that. And then if I could ask you, what advice would you have for other parents out there? Just expect the unexpected, and really anything can happen. Stay prepared. And Riley, you have any advice for any other kids out there if they see some wild animals? What should they do? Stay away. And Morgan was worried. I don't know who Morgan is. What did Morgan do? It's okay. And he ran into the house and told his grandma, something's wrong with Riley. Oh, yeah, Morgan. The next door neighbors. Oh, okay. They were trying to help out, too. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining Top Story tonight. I know that was kind of a wild morning. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Riley. And my mom said, no, go back, because if she dropped it right when they were coming, they were gonna, it was gonna come back to them. Yeah. Did you give your mom a big hug to thank her for saving you? Yeah. All right. That's good. Guys, thanks so much for joining Top Story. We appreciate it. I'm glad you guys are both doing okay. Thank you. All right. When we come back, a consumer alert: more than 1,000 cases of frozen raspberries recalled over hepatitis A concerns. What you need to know next. Okay, back now with Top Story's newsfeed, and we begin with the infamous Northeast serial killer confessing to 5 more murders. Richard Cottingham pleading guilty to the murder of a 23-year-old mother on Long Island and 4 other unsolved cases from the 60s and the 70s. He's been known as the Torso Killer or the Times Square Killer and claims to have up to 100 victims. He's already serving life in prison for 5 other murders in New York and New Jersey. Overseas to that shocking fight inside Senegal's parliament, caught on camera. Take a look. New video shows a member of the opposition walking up to a ruling party MP, slapping her across the face. Several members then jumping into the fray, one even hurling a chair at a colleague. Tensions have been high in the governing body since July, when the ruling party lost its comfortable majority. And more than 1,000 cases of frozen raspberries back here in the U.S. have been recalled over hepatitis A contamination.
The FDA says testing found traces of the disease in the James Farm products. The cases are exclusively sold through Restaurant Depot and Jetro locations in 9 states. So far, no reports of any illnesses. Consumers are urged to return the product or throw them out. All right, coming up, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle like we've never seen them before. We'll explain when we're back. We're back now with the explosive new trailer for the upcoming Netflix special, Harry and Meghan. A teaser trailer was released last week, but now we're getting a closer look at the 6-part docuseries that will chronicle the couple's relationship, their rift with the royal family, and their life in the U.S. The series will drop in 2 parts. Episode 1 to 3 will begin streaming this Thursday, December 8th, and episodes 4 to 6 will be added 1 week later. Meghan and Harry first signed the multi-year, multi-project deal with Netflix in September 2020 for what was reportedly worth upwards of $100 million, but NBC News has not independently verified that number. For more on what we can expect from this series and how the royal family is handling it all, I want to bring in NBC News royal commentator Daisy McAndrew. So, Daisy, I guess my first question to you is, they are truly leaning into all the drama in this documentary, and the phrase that stuck out to me was, there was a war against Meghan. Is that true?
Well, of course, with so many things like this, it depends who you ask, and it depends where you're sitting and in what direction you're looking at. I suspect from where Harry and Meghan were sitting, they probably did feel very embattled. They clearly felt very unloved and rather unprotected. But the other important word you used, Tom, there is drama. This is a trailer. It's meant to suck you in and make you make an appointment to view, which I think it has done very, very successfully. It's very dramatic and poses a lot of questions that, of course, the viewer will think they'll get answers to only by tuning in.
Yeah, whoever edited that trailer definitely deserves some type of merit, because it definitely does suck you in. How is the royal family going to deal with this production? Are they going to be putting out statements after every accusation, every episode, or do you think they're going to try to ignore this?
I think they'll do their best to ignore it. But of course, the big question is, will they be able to ignore it? And if by ignoring it, they make matters worse, then they might feel they cannot ignore it. You know that there's this famous expression in royal circles, never complain, never explain. And that's what they will try to do. But if there are cast iron accusations, as there were in that infamous Oprah Winfrey interview, then I think the royal family will feel they've got to get somehow back on the front foot and address some of those accusations. Whether or not they wait until all 6 episodes have been out, whether they wait and see quite how damaging and inflammatory the accusations are, I think we'll just have to wait and see. But in some ways, if they are being accused of racism, if they are being accused of not looking after the young couple, if they're being accused of not protecting them when there was an actual valid threat against Meghan's life, which seems to be a hint of what we might be getting, then I don't think they'll have any option but to address those issues head on.
How are the British tabloids responding to these trailers?
Well, of course, these trailers are very squarely and obviously laying some of the blame for the royal couple's unhappiness at the feet of the tabloids. And I have to say, tomorrow morning, they are coming out fighting. I was just having a look a few moments ago at some of tomorrow's front pages. The Mail, which has been a long critic of the couple, is saying, fury at Sussex's claim of war on Meghan. The Sun, another critic, Sussex lies and videotape. You can see what they've done with their front page. The Express, all out war. And one of the things, Tom, that they're picking up on is that in this trailer, there are some quite misleading using of footage. They're saying it's fakery. And I have to say, it is a bit stupid of the editors to have used footage that wasn't even appropriate, that wasn't even what the trailer seems to be suggesting it is. For instance, there's one shot where it looks like an unauthorized photographer is taking photographs over a wall of baby Archie and Harry and Meghan. Well, it wasn't that at all. They were on an official visit to see Desmond Tutu. He was the official photographer okayed by the palace. So you can see why some of the tabloids are a bit irritated.
Yeah, the editing maybe went a step too far there. I totally understand that. Yeah. You do this for a living. You've been watching and studying the royals for decades. What stands out to you?
I think a couple of things. What stands out to me is very many people assumed that they'd sort of said it all and that there wasn't a lot more to say. Well, clearly, if this trailer is anything to go by, they have a lot more they want to get off their chest. The implications that perhaps Meghan really did have a threat on her life. And just interestingly, Tom, just 6 days ago, a former very senior Metropolitan Police officer said that he had seen some threats that had been prosecuted by people who wanted to do Meghan some serious damage. Well, if that's the sort of accusations that are going to come out, that's very serious. And of course, the way they have used Kate, the Princess of Wales, in some of these trailers, portraying her in a bad light, I think that could be very inflammatory to the royal family.
You know, Daisy, as much as people maybe love the drama, the royal drama, I do think that people would love to see Harry and William, and maybe both couples, come back together. We saw some of that during the funeral of Queen Elizabeth, which we both covered. And I wonder if you think there's any coming back after this documentary, and then, of course, after Harry's book, which is called Spare.
Well, to the first part of your question, Tom, you're absolutely right. People really long to see the Fab Four back together. The romantic bit of me is desperate to see that. However, my head tells me that really we are at the stage, I think, certainly in the short to medium term, of no return. I don't think that this documentary is going to do anything but untold damage. And I think the book as well, because, of course, let's not forget the publishers, Netflix, their businesses, they need some bang for their buck, and they're going to want controversial stories. And I fear that that's what they're going to get. And that is going to do no good at all to the relationship. I can't see this family getting back together anytime soon.
Daisy McAndrew, we appreciate your analysis. We always love having you on Top Story. Thank you for joining us tonight. When we come back, marching on, the Waukesha Christmas Parade once again filling the streets 1 year after a deadly car attack there. How participants honored those victims while bringing holiday cheer back to the city. Stay with us. We are back now with the Waukesha South Marching Band. You saw them right there, marching in memory of the victims killed during a car attack on the city's Christmas parade 1 year ago. You may remember we were there with Top Story. The city determined to keep the annual tradition going, honoring the victims while marching on. NBC's Maura Barrett was there.
Waukesha's Christmas parade is back, stronger than ever, 1 year after tragedy struck. The community resilient after a man drove an SUV through the parade, killing 6 people and injuring dozens more. But this weekend, the turnout broke records as old traditions were revived. The dancing grannies who lost some of their own, donning their pom-poms and dance moves.
And what does it mean to you that you're back here dancing again after being injured?
It means that I have lots of angels surrounding me, and some of them are right over there. And it means that I had a miracle because I'm functioning and able to dance. And I keep crying, but they're tears of joy.
Their perseverance on the parade route, a promise kept. Last year, the group told our Tom Llamas that coming back was the best way to honor their fallen friends.
We're going to make it continue. We're going to get more people who would like to be a part of us, and we will build up to where we used to be.
This year's parade theme, Peace on Earth. First responders served as the grand marshals, while 6 snowflakes led the parade, honoring the lives lost. Their legacies still living on, while their families bonded forever.
We all support each other, and we all have a connection. You know, I don't know if that will ever heal. There'll always be a void there.
Sherry and Aaron Sparks lost their 8-year-old son, Jackson, who was marching in the parade with his brother and baseball team. They weren't comfortable going back this year, but some of his teammates did.
How did you get the strength to come today?
Because you can never let the bad guys win. Just to show support for everybody, and Jackson especially.
To ensure safety, the city quadrupled police officer presence and altered the parade route from past years, along with an $800,000 investment in new vehicle barriers.
the most important one is the community feels safe. And that's something we can't put a price tag on. And they want to show how resilient Waukesha is to the world, because we know the world's watching today.
And I think remember what a Christmas parade is. It's bringing everyone together in the joy of Christmas. Think about how terrible it is that, you know, there's been a stain on that, and there shouldn't be.
You're as cuddly as a cactus, you're as charming as an eel, Mr. Grinch.
That stain now starting to fade. Maura Barrett, NBC News, Waukesha, Wisconsin.
We thank Maura for that story, and we are thinking of all the residents from Waukesha. We thank you so much for watching Top Story tonight. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.